For our final panel, the hottest topic in our industry nowadays is probably the connected dashboard. There's no doubt that that's going to have a huge impact on consumers' listening habits, and we have assembled a very impressive group of experts to discuss this topic. And so come on up on stage, and it's led by the senior editor of Inside Radio, Paul Heine.
All right, thank you, Kurt. Boy, I am really thrilled to be moderating this panel. For one thing, the group that we have here just celebrated a major milestone in December when the number of cars with factory-fitted mobile connectivity in them hit the 50 million mark, which is huge. But things are really just getting started in this wild and woolly world of the connected car. And so I'm also excited that we have the entire ecosystem represented here, from the folks that are making the digital dashboards that are changing the media landscape in the car, to the streaming service providers that are coming up with all the great content that's making it possible for consumers to listen to so much additional programming in the car. And we also have somebody who's right in the middle. So we're going to start down at the, on your right is Ty Roberts. Ty is, he's the person I was talking to that's sort of in the middle of the streaming service providers and the automakers and the equipment manufacturers. Ty is the co-founder and chief technology officer of Gracenote, which provides services to the audio publishers, but also works with the major automakers. And then right next to him is, moving down this way, is Carl Rohling. He's the VP of Sales and Business Development at TuneIn. Let's see. Actually, I think I screwed up. That is not Ty. Ty is in the middle, okay? So it is George from Pandora who's on the right. See, these guys did sit in the order that I asked them to after all. We kind of had like a wedding seating chart before we got started. We wanted to put the streaming guys on the right and the dashboard people on the left. So George Lynch is the Vice President of Automotive Business Development for Pandora. Okay. Then moving toward me, Carl Rohling, VP of Sales and Business Development at TuneIn. Right in the middle, you already met Ty Roberts. Coming on down the line, we've got Mike Bergman, who is Senior Director of Technology and Standards for the Consumer Electronics Association. And then right next to me is Scott Burnell, who is Global Lead of Business Development and Partner Management at Ford. All right, we got through the introductions. It's getting mighty crowded in the connected car. You know, we started with just a few services: iHeart, Pandora, TuneIn, and now more seem to be joining every week. So let's start with you, Scott. Is there room for everyone in the connected car? And if not, where do you draw the line on that? Let's see.
Yes, again.
All right, there we go.
So yes, thank you. I'm done. Yes.
There's room for all.
Yes, there is room for all, especially in the world of brought-in, which is the Ford solution, simply because it's what the owners want. We're not going to decide as Ford what you're going to listen to when you get into your vehicle. We want you to decide and bring that in with you. So if it's a streaming service, if it's a broadcast radio, whatever it happens to be that our owners are listening to, we want them to do it in a Ford vehicle.
So how do you handle that in terms of prime real estate? Because on the first screen, there's not going to be room for a dozen or 15 different services. And then when you bring in the station apps, the individually branded station apps, you know, how do you organize all this in a way that's easy and seamless for the consumer and have everybody on board?
Customization is coming down the pike very, very quickly. So if you really, really want to think about it in a simple way, I'm guessing most of you out there who have an iPad on your lap or a laptop up, and you've got an iPhone in your pocket or an Android in your pocket, whatever it happens to be. If you take that out and take a look at it right now, you decide what goes onto that real estate. You decide what's on that first page. You may have drawers. You may be able to swipe back and forth. That's the type of customization that you're going to see coming down the road in vehicles, where you're going to decide as an owner, hey, I want AM, FM on this button. Hey, I want Sirius XM. Hey, I want Pandora. It's going to be something that you can do before you start driving the vehicle, so that when you want to drive the vehicle, you've got that muscle memory of the buttons. You know, everybody likes the buttons, everybody likes tactile, everybody wants to go away from touchscreen in a vehicle, but the screen is representative of what the buttons do. So as owners, you'll be able to say, this is what I want to listen to, and this is my prime real estate, so I'm going to control it.
Mike, how are you seeing this shake out in terms of all these different services looking for their prime spot in the digital dashboard?
Well, I think Paul's right that customization is very key to what the consumers are going to be wanting, both on the aftermarket and on the OEM side. But there is a struggle, I think, for that pole position, that default installed slot. This is compounded a little bit by the safety issue. You can't have 40 icons on a dashboard. You know, 6 is probably a nice number to present with people. It's kind of a traditional number from AM/FM radio. So there is a need, I think, for people to recognize that the default installation does have a certain amount of inertia, and there is going to be a struggle for that. People are going to really desperately want to get in that pole position, and there's probably a lot of interesting business discussions that happen around who gets to be on the prime real estate.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the car is where most of radio listening takes place. Broadcast radio is still the dominant medium consumed in the car, but there's a lot of new competition coming in. So, if I'm broadcast radio, how do I protect my position in the dash, and how do I adapt my strategy to this new environment? Carl and Mike, you guys both work with a lot of broadcasters. What are your thoughts on this? What should broadcast radio be doing to make sure it doesn't give up its position of dominance in the car?
One thing has already been done for them, and I don't think people recognized how this was going to work at the time, but HD Radio, the trademark of Ubiquity, is a copyrighted logo, and Ubiquity has deals in place to make sure that their icon gets used when their technology is used. So actually, because it's a hardware feature, AM/FM radio becomes a, presented fairly well right now. There's a lot of HD radios rolling off the lot now. So that's one element. And then there's also all the strengths that radio has traditionally talked about haven't gone away. There's the fact that it's hyper-local. They've got struggles with branding. There's people still talk about 103.5, not the call letters, not the big 103. And none of that. They still look at the frequency. But keep playing to the strengths, I think, certainly, and minimize the ad load where you can. It's still one of the most intrusive things that people talk about with radio.
Yeah, Carl, and you work with a lot of broadcasters, obviously. You aggregate a lot on the TuneIn app. What are your conversations like with them in terms of maintaining their dominance in the dashboard? And how big of an issue is the spot load issue in the car when you've got broadcast radio running, say, 12 minutes an hour and Pandora running 2 or 2.5?
Well, first question, I mean, it's really the catalyst for spending all this time bringing TuneIn to the car, because first, it's hard, and there's just never-ending support. Once you have an implementation, and 4 years ago, you're still supporting it today. So it's not without a lot of effort, but it really was to provide the distribution for broadcasters. How else would you get MVY radio in every single BMW today? Because they're not going to be able to go and do every single broadcaster. So it levels the playing field for broadcasters that want to get into the car, and yes, broadcasters still will focus on the local, but it removes that barrier for connected cars, that you can continue to enjoy accessing your content wherever you are. Services like ours have geo blocking, so you can limit it to being in the U.S. You can limit it if you want it to be in U.S. and Canada. So it's it provides access to their content, enabling them to focus on producing quality content and expanding the reach in which they're able to get new listeners as more and more cars roll off the line that enable and support connectivity. The second is less of my expertise, but there's no question there's a difference of the spot load between even Pandora today and most commercial radio. And I think that's something that broadcasters are addressing, specifically as there's more and more competition for connected services on on your dashboard. On the other hand, you should also outweigh that with the amount of usage you get. What you traditionally were limited geographically to a certain area has now expanded. So if you've got a popular station out of San Francisco, you can listen to it in New York for your loyal listeners as well.
And then George, this is the Digital Dash offers a huge opportunity for growth for pure play streaming services like Pandora, and you guys have made numerous automotive integrations. How is this increasing your listening hours? How is it expanding Pandora to a wider audience? I mean, there's still a lot of people that have never listened to internet radio in the car. How is this helping you grow your numbers?
Well, right now the biggest issue that we've got is trying to educate people to use Pandora safely in the car. Hands on the wheel, eyes on the road is paramount to a safe experience in the car. And the biggest issue that we're having right now is that people are getting in the car and the world has become instant gratification. And they get in the car. My wife is a prime example. She'll get in the car with her iPhone, and as soon as she's in the car, it's already streaming Pandora. It's already been paired to her car. As soon as it goes in there, she's listening to Bluetooth. She doesn't pay attention to anything at the dash. And of course, it's still, all that media is still on her handset, and she's not paying attention to the dashboard, which is the traditional place for the last 80 years where to get your media. She's now looking at this little handset in her car. And that's a problem. So we have got to educate the public and wean the public away from using the simple way of doing things or the easy way of doing things and doing the safer way of doing things. That's one of the things that we work very closely with the Fords of the world and the GMs of the world and the Toyotas of the world, is how to get that experience to be as safe, easy, and simple as possible. And that's our focus, is try to get and actually it's going back to the beginning. How do you get that experience as close to AM/FM experience in the car right now? That's our goal. We want you get in the car, Pandora's running. When you get out of the car, you go get your dry cleaning, you get back in the car, Pandora starts right back up. If it's not running in 5 seconds, forget it. They're going to go to Bluetooth. They're just going to listen over Bluetooth, they're going to stream it, or they're going to plug it in, and they're going to go over their accessory adapter. So the systems that we have out there, I've been very fortunate. I was right there when Ford launched their first system, and Ford was the first people to put a connected system in the car. And they're going to get better, and they're going to get better, and they're going to get better. I always go into these questions. People ask me, well, who's got the best system? Well, if I want to go excellent, good, fair, poor, there is nobody that has an excellent system out there. There's not an excellent system out there. There's a lot of good ones. There's a few fair ones, a couple poor ones. And we've got to get everybody up to that excellent level. We've got to get everybody to that AM, FM. You get in the car, it works.
Yeah, customizing a station at 65 miles an hour might not be a great idea, right? So are we going to see things shift more toward a lean-back, passive, almost broadcast radio type of experience in the car? Anybody have a thought on that?
I might have a thought of that. So the future of this kind of music products is actually profiling of the user's taste and what they want to listen to when they're driving to work, what they want to listen to when they're coming home, what they want to listen to when they're at their office. And so these music services are starting to build profiles of the users' listening tastes, and actually have then software which can take their profile and mix it. If like their wife gets in the car, it'll merge the two profiles. And this is kind of creating like an automatic, let's call it, music experience for them that they can just get in and get something that's working for everybody that's in the car. And the products that we're working on at Gracenote right now, this is exactly what we're working on. I've got tons of guys working on this kind of technology, and the future is kind of this kind of like it takes into account, for example, the weather that's outside, where you're actually driving, what the actual road's going on, how fast you're going. That's actually what the future of these systems is.
Yeah, you've been collecting data longer than anybody, so you're in a great position to kind of bridge the broadcast radio and the online world. And you were telling me about some products that you're working on that would allow you to pivot from a broadcast station into a online radio stream or a playlist created. You know, I'm listening to Led Zeppelin on KSAN in San Francisco. I press a button that says, play me more like this. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a very important thing for the broadcasters to understand, which is there's broadcast radio and there's HD radio, which has some very interesting features. But the whole idea is that when the person wants to hear more or something that's like what they're listening to, that's where you need to have your streams in line. Because you can flip the person to your stream. Yes, you could flip it to Pandora, but it'd probably be better for the broadcaster to flip it to your stream, where you've got something that's on there that the person wants to listen to. So it's important for the broadcasters to figure out how to develop their own customized channels, their own internet offerings that complement their broadcast offerings. And they can do this. There are many, many, many companies who provide all of the back-end services, the music, the licensing, the technology, and it's not as hard as it was maybe a few years ago. You don't have to go and like pay the record companies a lot of money. You can actually make a really cool internet service that goes with your broadcast service that then keeps your customers in your ecosystem. And that would be my recommendation, which is how to do that. And the technology component is really you're listening to radio and you push a button, and what it's doing is it's fingerprinting what's on the radio. It's actually identifying the song that's currently playing and then launching a service. And the user will probably be able to choose in the car what service they want. They could choose Pandora, they could choose anything, but the idea essentially is you push that button, I want more like this, and then it fires up an internet service and it gives them more like this. And that could be a music service, or it could be something from the broadcaster themselves. And so I just think understanding that future connection is going to be super important for all these guys.
All right, it sounds like we've identified a trend here, sort of a meeting in the middle of broadcast and online radio. What other ways is this space evolving? I wanted to start with Scott and move right down the line and ask each of you this question. You know, where is this space going? What do you expect to see in the next 12 to 18 months in terms of changes and trends and new players coming in and how this is all going to shake out? So you have to kind of look in your crystal ball here a little bit and give us some of your predictions. Scott, what are you seeing?
I see them moving very quickly. I guess for 12 to 8 months, looking forward, I'm going to take a step backwards, and my background is actually mobile and not automotive. And so we're in a spot right now, which is a sweet spot, a 3-year sweet spot that I recognized when it was text messaging, digital handsets, text messaging, data on a phone, Bluetooth, anything like that. The industry itself, in the mobile industry, and the operators and the content developers were doing things 3 years ahead of what the general public was doing. And though the content in the car has been around for a little while, the reality of it is it's just been public roughly 2 to 2.5 years where people understand it, and people like yourselves have been coming to ask us questions about it. So I think the next 12 to 18 months are where we're gonna hit that sweet spot of people actually starting to do it in their vehicles, taking those 10 to 12% of vehicles that are on the road right now, depending on who you ask, and they're actually going to be utilizing those, which will then in turn force the automakers to bump up their production of it quicker, meaning that more things will come into the car quicker, and everything's going to hit that steady state in that time where instead of asking, why would I do it in the car, people are going to be saying, how did I never do this in the car?
Sort of like, how did I not have one of these for my entire life?
Exactly.
All right. Mike, what are you seeing ahead in terms of trends?
One thing that I've been looking at that I think is very interesting is the rise of LTE multicast. When you look at the number of cars that are going to be connected to LTE, let's say in 2020, and then you look at the multicast technology, which is essentially a broadcast capability with a subscription hook by the Verizons and AT&Ts. So what they're able to do is they're able to broadcast a specific kind of content, and those who have subscribed are able to receive that. So that could be a baseball game. It could be. I think it's great for sports, for example. then that's a very lean back experience, right? You use the, I think maybe somebody used the expression lean forward, lean back. That's a very lean back experience when somebody's streaming it to you. And then you get the full-on lean forward. Now, we've had lean forward and lean back since the days of AM radio and 8-track cassettes. And I see it as a consumer want, a market need, not so much as a technology push out there. I think people are still going to want a certain mix of lean forward, lean back in their entertainment options. We're not going to be able to shift people entirely one way or the other. So we're still going to be serving lean forward. We're still going to be serving lean back. And what Ty was saying about the mix, the opportunity to come up with customization, that sounds like a opportunity to have a dial that you could dial in between. So there's a couple of elements there, not one big trend, but a couple of things going on that I think really lead into continuing evolution of the mix of lean forward, lean back in this space.
Great, thank you, Mike. Ty, what are you seeing ahead?
I would say a couple things. One is that the trend of a couple of years ago was to have the broad-end technology, which was the mobile phone had an application which had an SDK in it, which spoke to, for example, Ford's dashboard and then presented the information. And that was a really good model for a while. And I thought that might be the model for the future. But what I'm actually seeing is cars are just going online. Bitmap displays are going to cars. The cars have navigation systems. The cars have information. They're reading your email to you. You can do open table reservations on your car. So the reality is the dashboard built-in system is going online and has a very sophisticated interface for all kinds of things. And that's going from the high-end cars to the low-end cars. So now the things we're working on right now, it's all about the built-in, okay? All right, well, then when you talk about music services or radio or these kind of things, the question is, what's the future of built-in for radio and what the future of built-in for music services? And so it was great when it was outboard because you don't have to worry about it. But now, somebody's going to do a deal. And we're in the middle of a lot of these things going on right now, and I can just say, major car manufacturers will build music services into their cars. I won't say which ones, I won't say who it's going to be, but once one does it, and does a deep integration, and the voice recognition works fantastically with it, and it integrates with the other things that you're doing, and it gives you tickets to shows, that's going to set a new bar and a new standard to what music services in cars are. And so today, I think we're kind of in this mode where we're using kind of this SDK model. That's not the future. And many car manufacturers will probably show these things at the Frankfurt Auto Show, and there's going to be some things coming out pretty soon, and you'll see what the future of audio is in cars. It's going to be fully integrated. It's going to be integrated with your navigation. It's going to know where you're going. It's going to know what show you should see in the town you're in. It's pretty exciting, and I'm actually very excited about what people are working on.
Wow. Carl, biggest trends you're seeing ahead?
So 12 to 18 months isn't a long enough period because what I'm seeing is still OEMs coming to me with SDKs. And I see OEMs iterating now on their 3-year-old systems that they've had out there, improving the hardware, improving the streaming support. Yeah, that's good. There's starting to be some standards and legislative around safety so that some of the solutions are going to be disabled. Just pure looking at your phone via Bluetooth, they are going to eventually disable it because it's distracting. A lot of where we're going to go is going to be dictated by car connectivity. Is it going to be embedded in the car, or is it going to continue to be delivered by a mobile phone? And if it's going to continue to be delivered by a mobile phone, how much influence will Apple and Google have in the near future versus how much influence does Ford want Apple and Google to have? So for the first time after talking about it for a while, I'm not so sure anybody really knows because we don't have standards, and I don't think, we're not spending really enough time talking about what do the car companies want. They want to sell cars, and they want to have certain services in those cars that sell them. If they're distracting, pull it out. If it's preventing us from selling a car, we got to get it in the car. So when we start there, the next really question is, are people using these services? George already talked a little bit about some of the issues around getting them to use the services. So we've got to get to a point where there's good connectivity. I mean, we're a global service, so we still have issues in Europe where there's 2G and our service falls out. That's our problem. So then the next issue is who's going to be the one responsible for delivering it, the infrastructure. Who's going to be bullying us around and how we have to implement it. And then last, which I think is a point we'll cover later, who's paying for all this? How is it being monetized?
Yeah, big point. Great, thanks. George, want to weigh in on this?
Well, you know, from a Pandora perspective, I'm in agreement with Carl. 12 to 18 months, I think we're going to see a better iteration. Like I said before, we're going to see great improvement. There's a lot of things I'm seeing in the engineering world that I'm connected with in the infotainment space. Overused word, I guess, infotainment nowadays. But it all comes down to engineering. Who can build the better mousetrap in the next 12 to 18 months to make people aware that their vehicle is connected and that their vehicle is capable of providing this content that they do want in their car. So I'd say that's what we're looking at for the next 12 to 18 months. I mean, a year from now, we might have that one or two excellent systems out there that we don't have now. We're not going to have it. Not everybody's going to have it. But I think you're going to see probably in the next 18 months, every car manufacturer have connectivity in the car to some level. Yeah. That's one thing we're going to see in 18 months. We're going to see improvement on some of the systems. I don't think we'll see anything going back. I think everything will be moving forward. Along with Carl, is trying to figure out how to monetize. There's a couple OEMs that are going to be coming out with these embedded systems, and they're going to say to you, okay, you've got AT&T, but we are supporting Verizon, and by the way, you're going to have to pay $40 a month if you want to have this embedded connectivity in the car. Are you going to be willing, if you're an AT&T customer, are you going to be willing to pay a Verizon bill to them for $40 or $30 or $20 or even $10? It's another bill, and so that's going to have to be worked out. Who's going to decide where that monetization is going to be a very big challenge over the next. I think that's going to be one of the big battles over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, the data issue is a big one. You know, not everyone has unlimited data plans, and if you're a big streamer and you listen a lot, you can hit your limit pretty quick. Meanwhile, we've got partnerships that are taking place with wireless companies, Beats and AT&T, and then also some of the car makers themselves are cutting deals with the wireless providers. Scott, what's Ford's position on that? Do you see yourselves working into deals with Verizon and AT&T, or are you going to continue to have people do it off their smartphone?
Well, for the foreseeable future, we will definitely be doing everything on the broad-end strategy. And for a number of the reasons that literally just came up, the three of you actually just said, if you've got Verizon and GM says, well, we're using AT&T, and let's say you had a really bad experience with AT&T, does that drive you away from purchasing a GM vehicle at all? I mean, so now you're talking about a $10 a month stipend that's changing your mind on a $50,000 vehicle purchase. That's a pretty big step. Whereas if you get in our vehicle, it doesn't matter who you have, as long as you can connect, you can start using it. So yeah, we'll definitely be staying there. We do see future possibilities with embedded. I mean, because an embedded modem, or embedded modems themselves, are not particular to the content that's running on them. So there's all kinds of opportunity with vehicle data, with vehicle diagnostics, where things don't have to be on the content side coming through there because you don't want to waste that bandwidth. But there's also the opportunity, if we really want to start geeking out on data back-end loading. You can move data back and forth between having an embedded and a device. I mean, so there's a lot of really cool things that an embedded does bring in with it.
Great. Mike, what's your take on this? What do you see the industry doing in solving the data challenge to keep streaming growing?
Well, first I agree with what Scott said from Ford's perspective. I know that some other companies have a different perspective, and the types of solutions the types of things that they're using to try to make a solution to the problems that Scott brought up, they're trying to leverage off of family data plans. So where you have 3 smartphones in the family and you buy a car, then you add the car to the data plan, assuming that it's on the same carrier. But I think probably a big trend is going to be financing the data plan. And also, and that could go with a purchased car or leased car. Then there's the AT&T Audi deal, which I thought was very interesting because of the cost of the data. If you look at the cost per gigabyte per month of data, the carriers have been holding on to about a $10 per gigabyte per month, roughly speaking, price point. And that's US carriers more or less across the board. T-Mobile's been disrupting things a little bit, but you're not going to find it a lot lower until you go to Audi and their AT&T deal. That deal, if you price it out on a per gigabyte per month rate, it's their high end, which is only a 6-month plan. I'm sorry, their most expensive route is $3.30 a gigabyte per month. And if you buy up to the 30-month plan, it's more like 54 cents per gigabyte per month. So if you are looking at a second bill, but you're only being charged 54 cents per gigabyte per month, and it's going to be factored into your lease price or your car loan, that does start sounding kind of attractive, I think. And you might not worry so much about the 2.5-year point where you're going to have to pay an extra bill. It'll be interesting to see what their conversion rate is for people who have had the service for 2.5 years and now have to write a check. That'll be interesting. Sirius XM has a conversion rate of about 42% of new cars. That's a 2013 number. They've been as high as 46% in 2010. But their conversion rate right now is about 42% of new car owners taking that 1-month or 3-month deal and then saying, yeah, I am going to sign up for the service. So it'll be interesting to see what people do after 6 months or 2.5 years with Audi on those plans.
And this was mentioned earlier, but both Apple and Google are making plays to get their operating systems baked right into the digital dashboard. Ty, how does that change the game from your perspective, being sort of in the middle of the ecosystem?
It's an interesting thing. I mean, basically, Apple has the idea that they want to basically bring Siri, which is their voice control interface, to the car to control not only the music and the multimedia applications, but maybe even other functions within the car. And we'll see how well that works. The other aspects of it are interfaces, obviously, APIs that make it easy to reach the content that's on the iPhone. Apps on the iPhone can then show up on the dashboard and things like that. So I think most major car manufacturers will probably do a project with Apple, and then they'll see how it goes. So you can maybe see Mercedes or BMW, those kind of guys, doing something where they do a project. So there'll be something out there in the next year to see how it goes. It's not something they're switching in their entire ecosystem to. They're experimenting with it. I think Google's not as far along as Apple is with a complete vision for this, so maybe Google's thing will be a little bit different, but they are also very aggressive. They're going to the automobile shows, they're showing their software on their platform, and they're trying to promote that. I think what would be great for Google is if they actually were not just promoting an operating system for cars, but also bringing some kind of business or revenue model there. So if they were to bring, for example, audio ads or internet audio ads or some kind of form like that to the product, that would actually make it very motivational, because then you could not only use their software but also make money from using their software, which is probably something Apple may not be able to do. So we'll see what happens. These are two new guys coming into the field. There's so many aspects of making a stable, safe interface for cars. It's actually one of the things I would talk about a lot, which is really, it's all about speech recognition. I mean, the reality in the car is, what can you not do with a smartphone? You can't touch it. Like, the touch interface of the phone is totally useless. So that thing's just a brick, essentially, in a safe car. So how do you do something on your smartphone? You use some limited buttons and you speak to it. But the problem really is right now that getting deep integration of the speech systems with the applications that are actually running on the phone is a big, huge challenge. So you can't go right now and say to Spotify, hey, I want to find this really obscure band name and have it search inside Spotify and find that actual band and play up the song. That's a problem right now, which is trying to figure out how to do that. So the only way to really make these apps for music anyways, and maybe other things as well, speech is super important, and it's super hard. So we'll see. We'll see how good Siri is. Siri's Apple's solution, but we'll see how good it is for the other things that need to do.
One of the great things about online radio is all of the data that you can collect about the audience, what they like, what they don't like, their tastes. And then in the car, there's the opportunity to collect even more contextual information, the speed of the vehicle, the weather, maybe how many occupants are in the car, who they are. Scott, all this information coming into Ford as one of the leaders in this space, what's the end game for the data? The data is valuable. Is there a monetization play down the road where you can deliver messages directly to consumers in the car, sort of bypass the content providers?
Well, as far as data, so one of the things that we've just recently released with AppLink is the ability to access vehicle data. So a developer now can access GPS, can access speed, fuel life, oil life, windshield wipers, is the door locked, what gear is it in, all sorts of pieces of data that can be used to create features and functions for their applications. But that is actually a piece of agreement between that developer and that owner. Ford isn't sticking ourselves in between that, in that data doesn't pass into Ford first and then out to the developers. That data, we give you access to that, and then that is sent directly from the vehicle to the application if the owner allows that. So the monetization aspect of that is definitely coming, and it's definitely something that we are looking at as an automotive manufacturer to make sure that the developers and the content producers are doing it, number one, in the safe manner, in that it's something that's being presented back to an owner if it's something that's in vehicle in the appropriate way. We have very, very strict validation processes, so that agreement that if the owner is saying, yes, I want to give you this data, and you are creating a really comprehensive feature off of it, and it's something they're willing to pay for, by all means, that's a great opportunity, I think, within the cars.
Great. Ty, any thoughts on how data is being used to make the services better and also to monetize them?
I think that's a huge area of what this connected car can really be, which is to basically understand what you're trying to actually do. So the idea really is for the data to when you drive from home to work, what you're going by, what things you're interested in, what channels you tune to, what music you consume, all that stuff is going to get captured. And yes, there's privacy issues, of course, involved with this, but the reality is that consumers, if they get a benefit from that, like they get, hey, there's this show you can go to that's right by the place you're seeing. Oh, this restaurant that you and your wife love has an open table tonight. They'll be willing to share some of that information more than I think maybe we would have thought in the past. The aggregation of user preferences and where users are and what they're doing is a huge, huge, huge business opportunity. And then taking that information and leveraging it for advertising or promotion, massive. This is really, and a super important thing both with mobile phones, but the car really hasn't done any of this kind of stuff. And so in the future it will, and those who figure out how to do it, I think will really benefit a lot financially, and as well, I think the consumers will get a better experience.
One topic we've only touched on very briefly is safety, and it's a huge issue becoming more and more important. Everybody's taking steps to make these systems and products safer on the road. Mike, CEA has an active project with the National Traffic Safety Institute. Can you talk a little bit about that, what you folks are working on in terms of standards, when they're expected to roll out?
Yeah, absolutely. We're working with NHTSA, the United States Department of Transportation's National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration, as you mentioned, to create an industry-led standard to identify what can be considered safe in a vehicle. This is driven by data produced by NHTSA over the past few years, and also I think tied in part with their equivalent work, the so-called phase one of their project, to mandate safety in the vehicle for the OEMs. I said mandate, but they have not produced a mandate, technically speaking.
It's a recommendation.
It's a recommendation.
Guidelines.
Yes. But the OEMs take these recommendations extremely seriously. So one of the things about this is that the OEM recommendations from NHTSA are pretty stringent, and they apply to anything that is in the vehicle, including a phone which is connected by Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or USB. So what NHTSA is saying is they have scope and regulatory, whatever the word is, regulatory
Purview.
Purview, thank you. They have regulatory purview over the devices that are connected in. So what CEA is actually working on is the part that they're not reaching out to, and that is the devices that are not connected. So this is devices brought in. And so the CEA portion isn't exactly connected car, it's actually the bring your own device, not connected device. But I think the safety element here is that the NHTSA guidelines for the OEMs say no scrolling text, no text that the user is going to be reading, no entering anything with two hands, no entering anything through the steering wheel, no reading your emails. There's a long list of things that are forbidden under the NHTSA guidelines. So it is going to make for safer cars. I do believe that personally. But it does mean that there's a limited amount of that prime property that you mentioned earlier in terms of getting icons on the dash. There's a limited amount of graphics capability. The user interfaces are going to have to be very streamlined, very efficient, as Ty was pointing out. It's going to have to be very, very clean, hands on the wheel, eyes on the road, as George mentioned. So the OEMs are increasingly going to be held to these standards.
So the touch screen will not look like Times Square. It's going to be a little more less distracting.
Yeah, I
think
would,
certainly.
Yeah. For sure, I would say touchscreen is definitely going to have to be simplified, and of course, when you're driving, it'll defeature. Certain things will go away. But I will say this, which is, of course, that's all great and good, and NHTSA can provide a rule. But the reality is, 95% of people are just using their smartphones in their car. So unless you're going to arrest everyone, I mean, the reality is that's what they're actually going to do. So one problem we have is a music service or music technology or whatever my area is. I have to make it easy enough that they will use my interface, even with a defeatured, safe things, because I can't make it so defeatured that they just say, forget it, I'm not going to do this, I'm just grab my phone. Because the reality is they can always grab their phone, unless you make their phone not work in the car, which of course NHTSA has actually talked about. I think that guy was talking about blocking like all cell phones in cars. But if they don't do that, the reality is that you have to make it something that is kind of a balance of providing enough functionality that they can get what they want and easier access so that they actually think of it as an advantage to use the interface in the car to get to the product rather than grabbing their phone. It's tough.
Okay. We got one more question between the panel and the bar, and this is again asking you to kind of look into your crystal ball, look down the road a little bit. At what point does this reach critical mass? Let's start with George and work our way down. Any predictions as to when the connected car reaches critical mass so that it's nearly ubiquitous?
Crystal balling it. I mean, the OEMs they are not walking. They are literally in a sprint right now. I would say that again, in 18 months, maybe 24 months, 2 years from now, 2017, 2018, every vehicle will be connected. Every vehicle will be connected in some form or fashion. Minimum by Bluetooth, but in some form or fashion, it'll be a connected vehicle. So I would say 24 months, 36 at the outside.
Carl?
I agree with his timeline on connectivity and the ease of connecting. I think will be a battle that we'll still see emerge, and whether it's going to be embedded with a modem like Tesla or Mercedes, or you have to bring your phone. One thing I'm bullish about, because I've been working on some projects which haven't really made it commercially, is hybrid radio. We're an aggregator, so we want to connect people to broadcast radio, whether it's HD, whether it's over the air or through the streams. And it's complicated. All the hardware is already in the car. So you get into your car and you just say, Yukon versus Florida and let your car go and find the appropriate source. I've been talking about this for 3 years, still waiting to launch something because it's challenging. It's really hard to be able to become source agnostic in the car. But at a minimum, it's just exciting to think I'm from New York, and I drove back from the city yesterday to my house, and I was listening to, I'm not saying this because Rusty's here, but I'm a Soma FM fan, and then I switched it over to the Final Four, listening to the game, and all of that, right, it was irrelevant to where I was at that point in time to listen to the content that I want, when I want in the car, and that's what's coming to the vehicles.
Great. Ty, Mike, Scott, predictions?
I might say that I think it's going to be easier for the people in the cars to basically get the content that they want, but because of the fact that these new systems, the next generation of systems are really about automatic profiling, automatic setup of the stations they want, automatic finding of the internet radio channels they want. And so I feel like maybe if you look at 18 months out, you'll see this kind of automatic configuration functions to be a big deal. And then I think the next area really is like having the like I said, the voice control fully integrated so that if you want to get something that you want, to really get that to work super great. You should be able to, for example, call up any artist in Pandora, even in their super deep catalog, and get that to work perfectly. And that should not only work in the U.S. but also around the world. And so I do feel that that technology is coming. That'll help with the safety. That'll help with the interaction. So we'll see how it goes. It has to do with the voice technology moving from embedded in the car to the cloud. So we'll see how the cloud voice works and if it really can solve these problems. And I don't know. I think we've all been waiting for voice to get better for a long time. Hopefully it does.
Okay, before we get to the guy who actually works for a car company, I'll go ahead and say something about how car companies are going to adopt this. I think, George, I agree that it's going very, very fast. I think it might be going a little bit too fast in some sense, partly because the base platform, the lower-end vehicles are targeted at a younger demographic, and that's the demographic that's most likely to be interested in all of the new services. When I was at Kenwood, we had a radio that we jokingly called Your Last Kenwood because it was designed for the older demographic. It had big dial buttons and all kinds of stuff, and it was very, very simplified, and it was kind of looked like a 1990 car stereo from an OEM. So the younger demographic, I think, is going to experiment with this, and then the car companies are going to have to decide whether it stays at the low end or whether it needs to come out of the low end to save costs because the younger demographic is still bringing in their phones.
Hey, Scott, in addition to just when it reaches critical mass, if you could maybe just touch on what we can expect to see from Ford. You guys have been an innovator in this space. What are some of the new things you're working on?
Really cool stuff.
That you can't tell us
Now let's go drink.
I've seen it. It is really cool.
It's really cool.
I've seen it too. It's really cool.
You guys are going to be blown away.
Yeah, but we can't tell you, but man, is it going to be cool. I mean, honestly, the critical mass question, I think everybody up here kind of hit on it, so I'm going to go in a different direction and say, everybody that's out there, if you're listening to this, don't worry about that and don't wait for that because you're going to be behind the 8 ball at that point. You're going to be behind, first off, everybody sitting up here who's already been doing it. We've got Pandora, we've got TuneIn, we've got Habu. So it's there. Worrying about critical mass is just going to put you further and further behind. And I think, especially on the broadcaster side of it, I've been asked this question so many times: is how do we compete? You compete by doing it now. You compete by getting in. You compete by learning. You know, God bless these guys up here. They not only did they take a lot of lumps. I mean, they kicked the crap out of us on some stuff. And it's about learning that because it is a whole bunch of engineers in an automotive industry that's been doing things the same way for 100 years. So when we say we're looking 12 to 18 months out, that doesn't even register to these folks. So you've got to be doing it now. I have conversations internally with it just are pulling my hair out because I'm like, what do you mean we don't talk about this for another 3 years? In another 3 years, none of this is going to exist. It'll all be in a different form. So the critical mass is now. Hit it now and start working on it now. Whether it's with Ford, obviously it should be with Ford, or with somebody else, and you want to go make your life that much harder, you can go talk to the other OEMs. There's nobody else in here, so I'm just going to rattle on about Ford being awesome.
No one to call your BS.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see anybody from GM, so we're good. No, but in all honesty, yeah, it's about getting in. It's getting involved right now. It is finding out what do you need to do, how do you do it, and how do you bring your content to people. Just recently, again, just in Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, I was asked, where does the car fit in the Internet of Things? It's a thing. I get so confused on some of these people and the questions that they ask and why they're asking them. Guys, if you serve content, if that is your core competency, it doesn't matter how you're serving it. You need to serve it the way that people are using it. That's why phones picked up. That's why tablets picked up. That's why people are asking about how do we get in the car. It's because that's where people are doing it and that's how people are doing it. So quit asking and just get out and do it. And that's really the best advice I can give.
All right, that sounds like a great way to wrap it up. Please join me in thanking George from Pandora, Carl from TuneIn, Ty from Gracenote, Mike from CEA, and Scott from Ford. We'll see you at the bar.
All right, that's a wrap. I'd like to thank a few people before we leave. Let's thank Jennifer Lane for putting this whole thing together. What a terrific job she did. Brad Hill, our executive editor of Rain News. Thank you very much, Brad. Henry Mowry, thank you for all your help. John Guerin, thank you for all your help on putting the keynote together. Brianna is upstairs, but we'll thank her when we get there. And thank you to .fm, Radionomy, Triton Digital, and Music Master, and all our sponsors. Art Volo, thank you for being here to videote. Jason Calacanis, thank you for keynoting, and we'll see you upstairs for drinks. Thanks.